Okay. Good morning, everybody. I don't know if it's a good morning where you are. It could be a good afternoon or a good evening, depending on what country you're in or what time zone. But here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, it is still technically morning, actually mid-morning. Thank you first to Ginat and Sheldon for inviting both Benny and I to speak um, in their forum. I'm very greatly appreciative. I love these guys. They're always smiling, they're always fun, and seem to be living a good life. So it's an honor. So today I want to talk about the ultimate guide to living for longevity. And it's kind of a takeoff on our book. So this is our book, The Ultimate Guide to Eating for Longevity. And this one, well, both books that we wrote were quite a labor of love. There's a lot in there. The first half of the book, it really could be two separate books because the first half of the book is a lot of different things that Denny wrote about, like lifestyle things. And then the last half of the book, it's all kinds of different recipes. So if you don't have it already, I hope you do get it. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about again said is the ultimate guide to living for longevity. So, as most of you know, we practice macrobiotics, and many people are beginning to adopt a plant-based diet. And that being oftentimes for like health reasons, or because they really feel that, hey, this is the way to go, this is the way to eat because I want to cure this or I want to prevent that, and I just like want to live, longer. And I think that's wonderful. And then you have so you have your health reasons, right? And then you have some people who begin to adopt a plant-based diet, more of a vegan style diet for social and environmental reasons. Again, like all good reasons. I love animals too. And then you have those people that I call like the bandwagon people. They're just hopping on the bandwagon because let's face it, plant-based diet and even like vegan diets have become fashionable. There's a lot of professional athletes who have adopted plant-based diets. We have a lot of doctors leading the parade here for plant-based diets. So there's a lot of people out there really like advocating for this, movie stars and that. So it has become a lot more trendy, a lot more fashionable. So I think this is like wonderful and great. I guess my question is it really going to create lasting health? And the reason I say that is because, like, is everything just like about food and food alone? And I'll explore that a little bit further as we get into my topic here. So my experience is that just because we eliminate certain foods from our diet doesn't necessarily mean that we actually eliminate them entirely from our body. So we really do need to take special steps. And special steps meaning that not to recreate the same patterns that we had when we were eating, when some people were eating meat and dairy that we do with a plant-based diet. So by that, I mean, within the macrobiotic diet, which I find to be like the most well thought out of all the plant-based diet, because we include grains, vegetable, beans, soups, fermented foods, and really like foods from around the world. And we try to include like grains and vegetables literally like with every meal. Another good thing about macrobiotic diet is that we choose more things that are indigenous, meaning more in line and tune with our environment where we live. So that makes macrobiotics a little bit more unique. So getting back to the vegan thing and the vegetarian thing, so often I'll see recipes, and that's one of the first things I comb a recipe when I see something, and I'll see things like, like nuts ground up into something, or I'll see lots of spices in a dish. Well, that's fine if you live in a climate where it's like really hot, because like spices were really used to disperse heat and energy. But if you're living in a four-season climate and the weather happens to be cool, the more heat and energy disperse will leave you cold inside. So that's not necessarily a good thing. Desirable in one climate, but not desirable in another. The same thing when I think of like different ingredients, like nut butters added to different things. I love nut butter. I'm a big fan of tahini, um, but I don't like it mixed in with all of my foods. And if you happen to have a lot of creamy foods and a lot of dairy foods, when you add more of those creamy ingredients to the things that you're eating, then you're just really recreating the same pattern that you had prior to eliminating dairy. So same things when people plan their meals or their vegetarian plate around just like protein products. So, you know, like you'll see a plate there and here's like a big thing of seitan or a big thing of tempeh and a small little amount of grain and a small little amount of vegetables. So again, repeating that pattern of like, let's just do like the protein thing and center on that. Protein's important, but vegetables are equally as important. In fact, what Denny and I recommend is actually eating a larger quantity of vegetables and a smaller quantity of like grains and beans and other foods. So those foods are important, but vegetables are just like so important because really vegetables provide the balance to everything else. And especially light cooked vegetable dishes where they provide us with refreshing qualities. So those are different like little patterns that I see. And, you know, like I just don't find that to be like a more balanced approach to eating. And, you know, like I said, unless you take special steps and begin to approach your meal planning in a certain way, a more balanced way, then a lot of those foods are just going to get stuck inside and you don't have the ability to eliminate them. So basically, one of the ways that we create good health is really creating strong digestion. That means movement within our body. Things like we take in food, okay, we chew them, that's the first process of digestion. Then we start to assimilate things through more process of digestion. We absorb what we need, but then we need to eliminate the excess. And if we're not eliminating properly, then things back up and they get stuck inside. So you can still create health problems and stagnation from so-called healthy food. So that brings me to the next thing. The most important thing is creating that good circulation. So like I said, the first step would be chewing well. That's your first pump. Your second pump is actually physical exercise, walking, movement. The whole act of walking aligns the right side with the left side. So in essence, you're aligning the different chambers of your heart. You're aligning your kidneys. You're aligning your lungs, ovaries, reproductive organs, your entire body, left and right. And it's the movement that also creates that circulating, that active circulation inside, again, to help us eliminate better. Another good circulator is the body rub. So this was not like just a unique to macrobiotic practice, but this particular practice is practiced a lot in a lot of Asian cultures. But I believe I had a friend that was from Italy, and they said that practice was done there as well, where you have a bowl designated for your body rub, or if you have a nice like deep sink and you're doing this separate from the bath or shower, you're filling your sink with hot water, and you're taking a cotton cloth, and I usually hold the ends, you fold it in half, dip it in, wring it out, fold it again, and then you're going over your whole body. So the body rub not only activates circulation on the surface, but if you're using a cotton cloth and the hot water, that heat is penetrating together with the movement and the friction going back and forth, penetrating things deep inside. So you're actually circulating your lymph, you're circulating your blood, and the deepest part, it also affects your bones. So again, that's a daily practice that a lot of cultures have embraced and use as a longevity practice. So create circulation and then also cleans and draws out fat and toxins from your skin. So basically, in essence, you're affecting the outside and the inside. And that's really what it's about. The good part is you get nice shiny skin. So that's always a plus.
Someone here is asking, someone is asking about a body brushing rather than the body rub.
Okay,
using a brush, I suppose.
That's a great question. And those are two different practices. So body brushing is one of those practices where it's usually a long brush or even a smaller one. And it's light brushing, not a vigorous brush or anything like that. Incidentally, neither is the body rub. It's like very, very light, like kind of the weight of your hand, especially, you know, like over your face. So brushing, in essence, takes off the dead skin of your body. So that's mainly working on the surface. And too much brushing or that hard thing without doing something like the body rub. So you're removing the dead skin, but that can close your pores. Where the body rub, because you're using hot water and a cotton cloth, the heat penetrates the skin and opens the pores, allowing things and toxins to draw out from deep inside. So they're two different practices. You can incorporate both if you want to, but or you could do an experiment. You could try brushing for a week, and then the next week skip the brushing and try just body rubbing. See how your skin looks, see how you feel. I think in like practicing and experimenting for yourself is one of the best things that you can do, because you know, like, you really need to find out for yourself. So I hope that explains everything pretty clearly. Okay. So again, that's another thing that's very important. You have your chewing, you have walking, and you have your body rub. The three most important steps in movement to really begin to move things like both outside and inside. So then when you think of things like exercise, okay, and incidentally, it's very interesting. So I'm an avid baseball fan, and they began to like bring baseball back here in the United States with empty crowds and stuff like that. But they had to shut things down because like a number of players are being tested for COVID and are testing positive. So some people express symptoms while other people don't. And some of the ones that express symptoms are getting like, you know, relatively like ill, like pretty ill. So my one friend says she can't understand like these young, healthy people and how this virus is, you know, like really hitting younger people too. But really over exercising and using exercise as a means to, you know, like turn fat into muscle and protein really doesn't necessarily mean that you're healthy. Doesn't mean that you're healthy on the inside and that, you know, your organs are functioning well, or even that, you know, like your joints and ligaments are nicely and well lubricated. So, you know, you might look good on the outside, but there might be a lot of things that are going on the inside. And, you know, like what I have seen is there are a lot of professional athletes that they're so susceptible to injury. Yes, they put their bodies through a lot of stuff, but you know, like there's more injury I find now than there was like years ago. You just didn't hear of a lot of different things. And people like younger and younger, just like having a host of different problems. So exercise as a means of just like pushing your body, and there is such a thing as like over pushing your body, which leaves you more prone to different illnesses and problems. I don't think that's also like the key to lasting health. You need movement, and you need things that are fun, but not like this over, like weightlifting and I mean, I see like a lot of different, even yoga. I love yoga. I think it's a wonderful practice, but you see some people that they're just like almost overly built and overly contracted. And, a number of people we have seen for consultations, because sometimes it does really create different like health problems internally. So then you have like spiritual practices too. And my question is, can spiritual practice also alone be something that leads to longevity or lasting health? And when I say spiritual practices, there's some people that meditate all the time. And Denny and I have taught on programs with people from Thich Nhat Hanh, An Hung, and Tu. And they really tried hard to get the people in their community, the mindfulness community, to eat better. But nobody was like really buying into that. Most people thought, well, I'll just like meditate and it will like make me healthy and make me happy. But when I looked around the room, there were so many unhealthy people there. It was just like amazing. And a lot of people that were overweight, they didn't look physically fit. And some people didn't even necessarily look happy. So you have to think about that too. And I'm not just picking on people who meditate. There's a lot of people who go for all kinds of mental health workshops. Again, looking outside of their bodies rather than looking at themselves and looking at themselves as a whole. So none of those things, I think, really lead to like lasting health or even happiness. So what's unique about macrobiotics and why I chose to practice macrobiotics, I didn't come to macrobiotics for health reasons or anything like that. My martial arts instructor at the time took me to a lecture, and I listened to what was being said, and I was like, wow, bam, the light bulb went out. And I thought, like, I want to do this. And at the time I was working with children and doing a lot of counseling there. And I thought, you know what, I want to be a macrobiotic counselor and a macrobiotic teacher, because that way I can reach people on a more lasting level. So initially, health books and things like that, and like I've read the Macrobiotic Way and a number of things, and that was like all interesting. But what was really more interesting, I find, were a lot of the philosophical books. And then by attending classes, I always kind of liked the more philosophical lectures better. And it just seemed to me that really macrobiotics is not just about food, and lasting health is not just about food. While food is very important and it's a key to creating a foundation in good health, we have to really embrace many different things in our life. So, we have what we're eating, okay? We're having to create strong digestion. We're having to eliminate really well. Then we have the circulators that I was talking about in different practices of movement. And then we have spiritual practices that are also important. So, for example, before we eat, do we give thanks for our food? Do we give thanks for the people that grew that food and how we were able to obtain that food? And that's so important. I think that's really important for family meals. So really, how we eat is just as important as what we eat. Are we sitting down without doing other things that are drawing our attention away from like what we're doing here? Are we grateful and appreciative for what we have here in front of us? And I really think that's important, especially when it comes to children. like teaching children from a young age to be grateful and appreciative to what they have, and appreciative that they have good food there to eat and they have healthy food, and that, like this is helping to create health from the inside out. Because many people, like they just sit down and boom, 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 kind of eat without thinking, eat without being thankful. And it really just changes things. So we try to do that. We always try to do that with the kids, and try to do that with our grandchildren, and literally telling them that it can change like the quality of the food itself. Because
we have a question.
Oh, sure.
We have a question as well about how one cooks as well as how one eats. So cooking can make a difference in digestion. Is that right?
Cooking definitely can make a difference in digestion. How one cooks is a reflection of your spirituality too. Trying not to use like a lot of waste. I don't plan meals. I go in the refrigerator and I think, okay, I want this. This needs to be used now. Like sometimes maybe I want this, but like I look at something and here's a vegetable, and you know what? If I don't use it now, it's not going to be that great the next day. And then, are you doing things in a peaceful manner? Do you keep things clean? Cleanliness is a reflection of spirituality. So a lot of people, they want to cook and they want to do this and that, but they don't want to keep their kitchen environment clean. So I usually try to clean up as I'm going along. I don't like loud music blaring or anything like that. And sometimes I like listening to Frank Sinatra when I'm making it.
Oh, good.
Type food.
How long would you say that you spend cooking daily on average?
How do I spend cooking daily? Breakfast is really quick. So like I'll use like something left over the day before, and like that's like a 5-10 minute deal. I don't eat large breakfasts. I never eaten large quantities at breakfast, but I did eat breakfast as a kid. And just like small amounts, just enough. So lunch, again, it depends. It could be an hour, could be an hour and a half. Depends if I'm making a bean from scratch or something like that. If I'm doing something, a big project, so to speak, like making a bean from scratch, my preference is actually to do that earlier in the day, whether I'm using it at lunch or whether I'm using it later. And I usually make enough that I can like have that the next day or even the third day. Beans, I feel, improve with age. But certain soups, they don't take long at all. Like shoyu soups, miso soups, they're really relatively quick. That's, again, like a 10-minute process. I think, like if I would have to say things like longer cooked vegetable dishes, they're cooking a little bit longer, but they don't take as long to prepare. Same with certain grain dishes. Like if you're doing like a rice dish or even a couscous dish, it's steamed usually. Or a rice dish is like, like I have like one of those donabe cookers, so it cooks itself. You can be doing all these other things while you're doing that one thing. So it's really, again, an approach. So that comes into like, you want to keep your approach things happy and approach things like a mental look, like what do I need to do first? And when I have this cooking, I can do this, this, and this. So things like blanching, steaming, or even if you're making a raw salad, by the time you dunk your greens, and sometimes they need to be dunked several times. And then if you're using a salad spinner, like things can take a little bit longer. So I find that those are more time consuming really than a lot of the other stuff. I saw a question pop up about dessert. I don't make a whole lot of desserts. I usually make them more if I'm having people for dinner or if a child's going to be at home. Right now, melons are in season. Before that, berries were in season. And I'm really like all about like the freshness of like the fresh fruit that's in season. So if I'm going to make a cooked dessert, oftentimes that's more when the weather's a little bit cooler. I love cantons. I don't do a whole lot of baking when it's hot. It's just like, for me, it's just like too hot. More recently, in one of our webinars, I showed a dish where I steamed couscous, and I just added some fresh berries to it and some pecans and drizzled a little maple syrup over it. And it was really a nice dessert. So it was way lighter than a couscous cake. You know, like this took like, what, 10 minutes to prepare, as opposed to like, you know, half an hour or 30 minutes for like a couscous cake. I also made almond cream recently, but that was just more because one of the cats got into a bag of almonds and like started to like rip it open. So I kind of had to use the almonds there, or they would have gone stale. And I mean, it was like a big bag of almonds. So I made almond cream and I froze part of it, and then like we ate like the other part. So that was like a real nice little treat. But again, even that, like the hardest part of making almond cream is waiting for the almonds to cook so that you can slip the skins off. So that's like the most time consuming part. The food processor really does, you know, the rest. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of turning the oven on at this time of year. Anyway, yeah, I guess, you know, like I would describe myself as efficient in the kitchen. I'm not slow, but I'm not roaming around like a wild woman or anything like that. I'm just like slow, steady, and I'll like, you know, like put things on first that take long, and then in the interim I'll do other things. And I always clean up as I'm going, because that's just, you know, kind of like my thing. So I hope that answers that question. I hope I didn't go on too long about that. I do think that like even if I don't want to cook, and that's where spirituality comes into play, more or less, if I just like have this like kind of like resistance, I try to do something to shift my energy and shift my mindset, whether I sit down for like 5 minutes, pet the cat, drink a glass of cider or juice. Maybe I drink a glass of wine and see if it's evening. And I'm preparing it. Like Vino Verde is great in the summertime. It's great anytime. And then I'm like, you know, like ready, just like, you know, prop your feet up a little bit from like all the other stuff that, you know, like you've done in that day. So I'm mentally prepared to go there. And usually if I'm doing, we eat a lot of pasta, especially in the evening. We usually like eat like more grains, like in grain products in the morning. Well, not that pasta is a grain product too, but we kind of do like these different pasta dinners in the evening, or sometimes we'll do like pasta and fish and different things again in the evening. And even though the meal itself is kind of like more simple, it's still like rich and very satisfying and light and colorful. So I think when you make things fun in the kitchen, you're going to approach it with a lighter heart and a lighter spirit. And because you're enjoying yourself, everybody around you is going to enjoy things, you know, like much better too. Yeah, that being said, you know, the things like pesto, I have like really a lot of basil growing right now in the yard. I have like little heirloom tomatoes. That was my quarantine project, seeding herbs and heirloom tomatoes, although like it seemed like everything propagated. So I had a lot of things to give away. So that's also nice too. Like being able to like pick something fresh before you go to your kitchen and prepare that. So if that answers like the food stuff, I hope. Are there any more questions about food? I could talk forever about food.
No, I'm interested to hear more about the longevity. There's always questions about
Yeah.
food.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think spirituality, basically what I'm getting at is that, you know, it's not just about food alone. It's not just about spirit alone, and it's not just about exercise alone. Really, a macrobiotic lifestyle encompasses all those different things. And when you looked at the conditions of health that George Osawa put out there, you had all the different like physical conditions. I'm not going to run through all of them. And then I think his most important condition was that of having endless appreciation. So it was really about like an attitude, appreciating all of life and living that and encompassing that. So appreciation really is like part of spirituality. And attitude. So all those things are important, like, you know, not just giving thanks for your food, but giving thanks for your parents, because without him, you wouldn't be here. Giving thanks to your ancestors. Without them, your parents wouldn't have been here, right? Giving thanks to your teachers, because they laid the groundwork, whether you agree with everything they taught or you don't agree with everything they're taught. You know, they still are there and they brought something and helped you be where you are today. So always remembering that, remembering where you came from. I think that's like very, very important. And then also, when you have respect like that, you develop more a respect for yourself and a respect for the environment around you. And when I say the environment around us, so again, for example, you know, like you may be wanting to choose like the best quality organic foods. You may be choosing to, you know, like cook really well. You may be choosing all these different things, but, you know, like, do you have respect for the environment? You know, like, do you keep things clean? Do you try not to be like wasteful? Do you wash your clothes yourself, or do you take your clothes to a dry cleaner? And I don't even care if it's an organic dry cleaner. You know, how good is that really for the environment? Or I'll see people like dumping things down the sink, or dumping things like in like a sewer thing here. You know, like that's not okay. You know, or just like, you know, being wasteful in general. So there's really like a lot. And I think when you embrace really a holistic lifestyle and begin to show appreciation and begin to like take care of yourself, treat yourself with kindness and treat other people with kindness, then that leads to more lasting health on the inside, and that's going to lead to more personal health, personal happiness. And in general, the happier you are, I believe that's what leads to longevity. So it's not just like one thing, but it's really about like being happy with who you are, being happy with the direction that you're doing, being happy with your lifestyle. You know, like, what are you doing? Am I doing something good in the world? Am I doing something that makes me happy? Am I doing something that benefits myself, but also is benefiting the world and other people? So it's not just like one thing. And for me, that's really living a macrobiotic lifestyle. Not just like, you know, having brown rice and miso soup and like other things like that. No, I personally don't even eat brown rice every day. I eat it often, but not like every day. So I think that's important. If I would talk a minute about like movement, I'm very passionate about a practice called gyrokinesis, and it's in essence like they dubbed it as yoga for dancers. And there's mat work, there's standing work, but then there's also floor work. I mean, on a stool and that. And it's very interesting because a lot of things are based on a figure eight. And a figure eight is what? It's like the sign of infinity too. So it's moving things on the surface, but also moving things internally. So anything like that too, that can move you internally, excuse me, also helps create like a stronger connection, connection to like God or an infinite oneness. So a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of like, you know, keeping things moving, keeping things like flexible and that. And flexibility comes in, you know, like not just like being able to move, but flexible in your mind and flexible in your spirit again. So I probably ended a little bit early here. Are there questions?
There is a question. Someone would like to know your ideas on gluten-free.
Well, so I know that's become like a big thing right now. And of course, if you have celiac, then that's like one thing. But a lot of other people have eliminated gluten from their diet because they feel that it builds inflammation. The thing is that all the gluten containing grains are the grains that tend to be more relaxing. So like pearl barley, farro, steamed sourdough bread, pasta. So I think if you want to maintain a more relaxed, balanced condition, then foods like that are important. And it just like depends on the ability. Maybe if you don't actually have celiac, really what you might want to see is what other things somebody might be doing as far as with food that could be creating, you know, inflammation or interfering with digestion. You know, 9 chances out of 10, I've seen and worked with a lot of people over the years. And what I was talking about earlier, what I've seen with people's diets and then what I've seen with different recipes, you know, like people just combine a whole lot of things that, you know, it may taste good now, but how's it going to make you feel an hour from now? How's it going to make you feel 2 hours from now? How's it going to make you feel the next day and the day after that? So, for example, adding, again, like nut butters to desserts to make like a creamy type of pudding. You know, I don't think that that's a great idea. Or like dousing every fresh vegetable dish with some type of dressing. Again, when you're doing that, well, that might taste good at the time, and I'm not saying you can't ever do that. How's that going to serve you again in the long run? Is that going to enhance your digestion? So I think it's more like little things like that that people really need to examine what they're doing and look at what they're doing as a whole, rather than just look at like, oh, you know, like I can't eat pasta because of this, or I can't do this because of that. And then certain vegetables also create inflammation too. You know, so again, the pasta that I use it's 100% durum semolina. And, you know, I'll be honest, it doesn't make us gain weight at all. And Denny and I actually have a really relaxed diet, especially like with like staying in and everything. I've cooked for a lot of people. I've cooked for a lot of people in different circumstances. Did craft services for things, and like the girls there were like concerned. They wanted pasta, but they were concerned that they were going to get fat, because in Hollywood everybody's concerned about like their self-image. And people lost weight with what I was eating. So, you know, like if you lost weight and you sleep better and your digestion's better, then that would be like the opposite of like some type of elimination. And then you have like these gluten-free pastas too, that like some of them, they just simply turn to mush when you cook them, or they have like tapioca starch or potato starch. I don't think that those are great things. I've seen some of them that it's like a brown rice pasta. You know, it tastes good at the time. I've tasted them, but the next day they're hard as a rock. So again, that says something to me too, that like, I don't know. You know, I don't know about this, that like how good it can be, because you can't even use it the next day. And if you try to reheat it, then it goes to mush. So yeah, I can't say that I'm a fan.
Okay, so any closing words or questions from the peanut gallery?
Am I the peanut butter?
No, no, no. No, that's our audience here.
Jeanette, instead of typing, can I ask a question
Yes, please.
this way? At the beginning, we talked about the popularity of the vegan diet compared to a macrobiotic diet. And in my mind, one of the big differences is the study of energy in our food in the macrobiotic diet. So how can we communicate that simply in an easy to understand way to people who are interested in the macrobiotic? Because a lot of people are very confused about that.
Oh, that's a fantastic question. Thank you for asking it. Um, well, so all food has energy, okay? And different cooking methods also provide like different energy. So when you're preparing something, you're always alternating that energy of the food itself. And you're either enhancing and bringing out unique qualities in that food, or say, for example, overcooking, then you're actually destroying the quality of that food, the nutritious quality. When I do beginners classes, I always kind of draw like this balance beam. And when I teach menu planning classes, incidentally, I'm doing a menu planning series. I do a support group every Monday. I won't be doing it this Monday because we're going to go away for a few days, but it's from 4:30 to 5:30 Eastern Standard Time in the United States. But I'm going to doing a menu planning series. So if you draw a vegetable garden, and it's very simple as that, you have vegetables that grow below the surface, okay? You have vegetables grow at ground level and vegetables that grow up. So something that's destiny is to move downward is receiving a little different energy than something that grows, and the destiny is to like move upward. So things that grow downward, in essence, help to straighten. It's a root vegetable, so they give us roots. They help strengthen us on a more deeper level. Things that grow upward help our energy move up and out. So we need a balance of both. I think that's like a simple way of maybe explaining it. And then things that grow slightly above or below the ground have just that, a grounding effect. They're usually sweet vegetables. So we're combining different things, again, to create different energetic qualities. And then together with like cooking, again, we're creating different energetic qualities. And the uniqueness about understanding different energies of food itself is that you have the ability to create what you want within your body. Together with that, again, it's not just within your body, to create and live the type of life that you want to live. So you're either enhancing a more mental type thing, or maybe you can enhance like certain and stimulate physical activity. And I think that's really like a unique thing. You could also take somebody who has different problems here and there, and you can bring it back to balance because you're using energy to do that. That's where like food really comes as like playing. The same thing with grains, the same thing with beans. You can take all these different foods and you can classify beverages according to their energetic nature. Again, some things bring energy, move from the center upward, and some things bring energy inward. So depending on your personal condition, where do you need to move? Do you need to move your energy up and out? Do you need to settle your energy and strengthen things deep inside? You know, a healthy person needs a good balance of both. People who have practiced macrobiotics for a long time, things that kind of ground you and make you stronger are really steadiness over time. Not just, let's just like, you know, like make things that are just like grounding, strengthening. It's really a steadiness over time that creates those strong roots and creates that sense of balance, really, so to speak. And really, like, the best way to like balance things are having meals at regular times, you know, like having like a steady schedule too. That's one of the most important keys to longevity, like having that steady schedule. I've had like relatives that they lived well into their 90s, and you know what? Lunch needed to be served at 12, you know, and if it didn't, they ate very little in the evening, you know, like even if they went to dinner, like they would just like eat small quantities. And most of them drank a little bit of alcohol. There was a little bit of beer, a little bit of wine, not to excess or anything like that. So it's kind of interesting. I have a lot of longevity in my family, a lot of aunts and great grandparents that lived into their 90s, like close to 100. So did that answer it pretty well for you?
It did. As I tried to explain the difference to people, I find myself giving them a 2-hour lecture on the history of Osawa and yada yada. So coming down to the essentials of balancing the energy, I've been struggling of how to describe that. So your explanation was very helpful.
Yeah, and you can't really use yin and yang because that's just gonna like what? You know, that kind of like just confuses people, blows them out of the water. But it's really, you know, like some foods like move your energy up in cooking style. Some things like just stay at ground level. Some things move it back down.
Yeah.
You know, like steamed greens, take light vegetables. Steamed greens moves energy in and settles. So that's helpful for like what? Upper body problems and to strengthen like the lower part of the digestive system. But if you have too much going on and your condition's too tight internally, then you emphasize more blanched because you're using more than one vegetable there as opposed to one vegetable, blanching, dunking it in, bring it out. That things are open, things are moving and circulating, brings energy from the center out. I love talking about food energetics. Like, that's probably my favorite topic of all time. I may talk about that in my classes, and I use it a lot. I use it when I do menu plans for people, right down to like very specific things that I want with that, and I get good results. And when I'd like to cook for people too. So thanks for asking that question.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Well, thank you, Susan. I think that we actually are out of time. I want to give people a few minutes. So I really super duper thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate your knowledge, your ideas, your participation. Thank you so much.
Thank you for what you're doing. You look good. Great. You look so
steadiness. I like that idea of steadiness.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Playing, you know, it's really important to play. You enjoy what you're doing.
All right.